leaving the old life behind, giving the new one a try, making the past as we go, trying a new way to grow.
Hello, and welcome to How to Have a Better Life When You're Dead. A discussion between Mike Mirabal and Ziewe, two out-of-body travelers who venture into regions you may encounter after you transition from physical life, what some call death. Some of these are the areas reported in near-death experiences. We say, have a better life, because life continues, and the moment you die to this world, you will find yourself in another reality. Between them, Mike and Ziewe have over 75 years OBE experiences to talk about. I hope you enjoy their conversation.
We have to ask why so little time we still have to try.
Hello everybody, here's another chat with Mike and myself, and it's the third one now, and Mike is rather an expert in out-of-body travel, much more though than I am. And what is really fascinating is he has actually got a job over there, which is retrieval, and it's absolutely fascinating. Mike, can you just give us a little bit of an insight in what you do when you're out of body?
Sure, Jürgen. Hey, listen, I'm really enjoying these, and it's great to get to know you. I don't think there are a lot of us that do this work that I do, which is called Retrievals, but if they do, they remain anonymous for obvious reasons. But yeah, back when I first started having out-of-body experiences in 1987, I was a fairly young man, so I kind of did what a lot of people do when they first get out of body. I won't go into detail about some of those activities, but after a while, you kind of look for something more substantive to do. And I think, so when I asked that question, I think I kind of opened the door for this. The thing I used to call them was rescues. So you've seen the movie Ghost, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So dead people, for lack of a better word, would come and visit me, and I would help them get to where I thought they might need to be. A lot of it was sort of intuitive. It's flying by the seat of my pants. But I just kind of knew through common sense that, it's probably not the most advantageous place for them to be, not optimal. Is there anything else you want to ask about that?
Well, recently, or just earlier, you sent me a report which you compiled.
Right.
And I thought that was really interesting because you touched on a number of issues which I totally sort of find interesting because I had very similar experiences. And I think what is so good about us talking is that we find a consensus which gives it much more reality to our experiences. And I think the more people find a consensus in their experience, the better and the more easily we will be map out the next dimensional levels. So I don't know how you feel about it, but do you want to read what you sent me earlier? That could be quite good.
So this is from earlier this year. It's called Group Retrieval, Something New I Learned. I learned something new this morning. Like to share it here. I woke up about 4 a.m., drank some water and a cup by the bed, and resumed my sleep. I quickly felt the awareness I could get out, meaning OBE. Nowadays, there is no vibration or a definitive sensation that prompts me to know I can get out. Instead, it's just a subtle knowing that my etheric body, for lack of a better word, is loose. And if I want, I can advance the separation process. Sometimes getting free of the etheric state is easier than others. My ease of moving out seems to be related to my well-being of my physical body and my mental state. I had eaten 6 slices of pizza and 2 glasses of wine the night before and am nurturing a bad insect bite and taking some antibiotics for it. This combination, along with what is happening in the world right now, increased my difficulty in separation. I eventually succeeded after 4 or 5 attempts to move into my astral body and found myself lighter and in an outdoor setting that looked. I eventually succeeded after 4 or 5 attempts to move out of my astral body and found myself lighter and in an outdoor setting that looked dark like the night. This is where I ran into some of the people inhabiting this location. One tried to attach to me from behind, and I pulled him off and chastised him for his rudeness. This is sort of an occupational hazard when you do this work. They want to ride back with you, but that's for a whole nother discussion.
Yeah.
I wasn't surprised to be in the lower astral given my physical and mental state. I know how to get out of these places. The inhabitants often don't, however. So this is where my retrieval work often starts, in the lower vibratory worlds. These are folks who could most use the assistance that someone in the human has to offer. As I mentioned in other writings, they can see us who are in the human and relate to our frequency more readily than if a helper were to appear there. And, just to add something to that, the people often ask this and they try to use this as their reason why. How could this possibly be? Why don't the helpers come in and jump into it and, help them? Why do they need humans to be involved in this? And part of it is that our vibratory frequency is closer to that of, the people that have crossed over because they're more earthbound inhabitants. So being summoned by 10 to 15 of them, I inform that I can get them out of this place if they want to come. I tell them to follow me. I look around for a building with a light source. Sometimes it can be what looks like no more than the illumination that you see from a single candle. But any light is helpful, and I find it to be an indicator of places I can exit. If there are stairs or even better elevators, I can move out of these locations eventually. Some who travel can do it with their mind. I can spin on one foot and raise my frequency, but this is a situation. In this situation, I had a group of people I was trying to get out. So I had to conduct the operation using a protocol that they would be familiar with. In this particular building, my option was to move them through a series of doorways. I would take them through a door and down a hallway and repeat this until we got someplace with more light. At the end of that hallway, I called out to them that they must go through the door.
Mike, I think you covered some really good points. Let's
you want to stop there and talk about it?
Yeah, and then we carry on from there, because what I found interesting is that the first thing quite obvious, that people who see you, obviously they see that you are in a state where you can help them, and so they flock to you like moths to the light. And then they cling on to you and hoping to be sort of taken wherever you belong to. And that is a really interesting thing, because that happened to me on a couple of occasions. Although I'm not a retriever, I just sort of stumbled into the situation. And then, of course, I don't know how you feel about it, but I found I was weighed down by these people as I was trying to lift up into the air. I couldn't, because the weight of these people clinging on to me seemed to be pulling me down. What is your experience? How do you work with that?
I have to watch my perimeter. Now, some people that have OBs can see 360. I haven't quite learned how to do that yet. So I have to kind of look through my astral eyes around. And if I see somebody kind of moving behind me, then I turn around and make sure that they know that I'm aware of them.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen that often. I don't want to scare people that, oh my, and I don't really have any negative experiences per se. You know, I kind of feel like I'm the badass in these realms. I mean, I don't have any fear. I think fear kind of draws these things to you sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, I'll read posts on some of these astral projection sites and they run into negative entities and all that. I don't really have that experience. And the few times that I have, I deal with it. So
yeah, you mentioned, and then you mentioned another thing which I found rather interesting. It's almost like a metaphor. For example, you mentioned you're trying to find a light, okay, and then you navigate towards the light, which is a bit like a metaphor for a higher dimensional level, and
that's the conclusion I've come to.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, that's what happens to me. The light sort of, I had quite an interesting experience with regard to the light. I saw a light in the distance, like you sort of indicated, and as I got closer, I realized there was a statue of a Buddha. Okay, and as I got closer to the light became stronger, and then I seemed to be merging with the statue. And the light started to fill me. And that triggered a lot of thoughts about people in ancient times worshipping a statue, okay, and identifying this. And what happened to me was, as I sort of focused on the light, I slipped into the Buddha statue and I became filled with the light. And as I looked around, I saw that people stopped, and they sort of navigated towards me. And at the same time, I felt this incredible enlightenment type of feeling. I felt as if I was a Buddha, okay? And I find this sort of power of identification on the astral plane can be very, very powerful. So when you identify with certain things, you can become that thing, you know. And to me, what I found, that was a kind of retrieval in a way, because all the people that sort of focused on me and came towards me, I could feel how I could give them this energy, okay? And and that was really good, because they all benefited for some reason. And then I came to, I can't remember how it ended, but it was quite a blissful type of experience. But the other thing you mentioned, which is also equally interesting, is you say you're taking people down a hallway. Tell me a bit more about that.
Well, what I try to do is, when I get to the light, now a lot of times when I get to the light, I immediately ask for a guide. So, and they show up. So this one was a little bit different in that I had to take them through this, but normally I don't have to go down hallways and all of that. So I think because of my physical state, I was pretty deep in the lower astral world. I think sometimes I'm a lot closer to, because finding a light's really easy, so I don't have to usually go through all that. But so when I when I get to where I'm going, when I get to the light, the frequency is high enough then that a guide can present themselves to the person, and they can see them. Now they have access to that realm anyway, as you know. You can always go down in frequency, but the humans can seem to be more relatable to them, to be more relatable to the person that's being retrieved. They seem to trust us more. And what happens with the guides too is I've seen them transform in front of me to look more like someone or a person that they might know. So it doesn't actually have to be the person. It doesn't have to be grandma or Aunt Judy. It can just be somebody, and they kind of, or a friend that has passed on, and they take on that. And you said something interesting too. So for you, you know, you studied Eastern philosophy, correct?
Yes.
You know, I mean, I'm aware of Buddha. I know, you know, what the Buddha represents, but that's not been a track that I've gone down. I have different archetypes than you do. Because obviously when you get into these realms, they're very thought responsive. And so the archetypes that are meaningful for the person that's doing it. That's why sometimes people, I think, do run into maybe negative things, because they're bringing some level of fear into this world. But I am totally comfortable. I mean, for me, it's no different than when I go out during the day and go to Starbucks or the grocery store. I mean, it's not that big a deal, but I realize it's a rather odd skill.
I think that another thing which you just touched on, and I heard you talk about it earlier, to get to another level. Do you find, if you physically or on the astral level, if you go upstairs or go on a higher elevation or go through a ceiling, you actually, it's almost like a doorway to a higher, more refined vibration, perhaps, or refined level. And the doorway, let's say you're going up the stairs and you open a door, it's almost like a metaphor for a higher level. That's how I see it. And what happens psychologically when you get through this metaphor of the door, it takes you psychologically into a higher level. Is that how you can explain it, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, that's been my experience. And you just kind of find these things on your own, obviously, because, I mean, I didn't read your books until a couple years ago. The only book I had read on astral projection or was Robert Monroe's book for probably 30 years, just because I didn't really want to have that other people's experience impact my own, and I wanted to stay as objective about it as possible. So like you, I sort of found on my own that's the case. Going upstairs, elevators, escalators, anything that takes you up changes the frequency.
Even minor things. I mean, for example, I was on a boat once, and I said I have to get to a higher level, and all I did, I went to the upper deck, and I found myself on another level. Or I was going up the stairs, and there was a ceiling, but there were no doors, so I cut my way with my fist through the ceiling, made a hole in the ceiling.
Oh, yeah. Now, you were able to go, I remember in your book, you talked about that, and you broke through into a much higher dimension.
Yes, that's right. And it went
so you had to essentially claw your way out of the frequency you were in.
I think this is a beautiful thing, how thought works, and how we can use metaphors like this and actually psychologically put ourselves into a position where we readily accept a higher vibration and then actually make it into this higher level of consciousness.
Yeah.
leaving the old life behind, giving the new one a try, making the past as we go, trying a new way to grow, finding a new way to define the way our life is in this time, changing familiar thoughts as we go, shaping the world that we show. So